Today we are starting a discussion on ethics paper, also called GS4. This paper is introduced in 2013. Now so far we have 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17, 5 papers. 2017 is the latest. We want to examine what was the purpose of introducing this paper and whether the goals are being realized.
Okay.
The purpose seemed to be to create more honest bureaucracy. So the assumption was that previous pattern was testing general knowledge, maybe the ability, the competence, but partly the ethical part was missing, and people should be made to study, or people should be tested on the ethical component. So the assumption was that introduction of ethics paper would improve in creating more honest civil servants. So it was expected to increase the honesty levels. So in 2013 it was not certain. They released one sample paper and after that the final paper. But now we have 5 papers. Time to see whether such a thing is happening. My answer before I explain in this class is that if paper is introduced to recruit more honest people, either through making them study through particular literature, or you selecting them because they already have that attitude, whatever the assumption is. If the aim is to take more honest candidates, then I would say this paper has so completely failed. So my suggestion is maybe radical, is just drop the paper. It can't even be reformed. So why this? So it is here. I would like to concentrate on the nature of the questions asked. Mostly I would like to focus on 2017 questions. So through analysis of these questions, I would like to explain my case. Take some questions of 2017. Okay, first question 12. It says you are the manager of a spare parts company A and you have to negotiate a deal with the manager of a large manufacturing company B. The deal is highly competitive and sealing the deal is critical for your company. The deal is being worked out over a dinner. After a dinner, the manager of a manufacturing company B offered to drop you to a hotel in his car. On the way to hotel, he happens to hit motorcycle, injuring the motorcyclist badly. You know the manager was driving fast and thus lost control. The law enforcement officer comes to investigate the issue and you are the sole eyewitness to it. Knowing the strict laws pertaining to road accidents, you are aware that your honest account of the incident would lead to the prosecution of the manager, and as a consequence, the deal is likely to be jeopardized, which is of immense importance to your company. What are the dilemmas you face? What will be your response to the situation? 20 marks. In essence, the question is, you are with a person who is important to you in business and you saw him hitting a motorcyclist, and now investigation takes place. Then will you report that your own the person with whom you have a business dealing, with whom you have a profitable business, likely to have profitable business, say that he is involved. So the person whom you need, hit. What will you do? What will you tell? Investigation. So what does this mean? It is obvious that a candidate who wants to get marks will definitely say, I think he will tell the investigators. It means in an examination situation, the answer is guessable. Somebody hit a motorcyclist and how will you say, I will not tell, because I will not lose profit. So it is guessable, a fixed answer. There is no dilemma. I am not saying that the candidate will not have dilemma in real life. He will have dilemma in real life. He may not tell the investigating officer. But in an examination situation, he knows what is an expected answer. It is a fixed answer. So what he will say is that he will cooperate, and then to that he add all kinds of positive things. This is the dilemma, but finally it is a fixed answer. So this doesn't test the real dilemma. It doesn't test the actual behavior. Predictable, guessable, fixed answer, and then it is an examination where it is almost like if you don't write that way, you will be penalized. So what is this? This amounts to forcing the student to be dishonest. He will not even for a moment to think what he will in fact do. He will only think about what he should write. So pointing gun to his head and then ask, will you cooperate with the investigative agencies or not? Will he say he will not? So it is a meaningless thing. It is a promotion of dishonesty. I would say the question itself is immoral. You shouldn't ask such questions under such conditions of enormous pressure. Okay. There is one more question, similar. Again for 20 marks. Question 10. You are aspiring to become an IAS officer and you have cleared various stages, and now you have been selected for the personal interview. On the day of the interview, on the way to the venue, you saw an accident where a mother and child who happened to be your relatives were badly injured. They needed immediate help. What would you have done in such a situation? Justify your action. Again, the structure is that relatives met with an accident. What are you going to do? Again, accident, and what will you do? See, the question is, what you will do is a really different thing. What you will say in the examination. Again, it is easy to guess what the examiner might expect from you. It doesn't test real answer, real dilemma. It is a fixed answer. It is very brutal, very violent, and that's why I would consider it a part of an immoral question. So students say, this is what we will do, we will help. But then what else? Maybe think of something. So they don't really test. Can one say that a person who helps the victims here or who cooperates with the investigation is more likely to be honest in real life? You can't make any such reference. you are in fact only training the students in cheating. So I don't know how answers to these questions, which are so direct, are supposed to test the honesty when they are actually in the job. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, and some questions are trivial. Statements are given and you are asked to comment. Question number 9. There is a general perception that adhering to ethical conduct, one may face difficulties to oneself and cause problems for the family, whereas unfair practices may help to reach the career goals. So if you are ethical, your career will given a push. If you are unethical, and if you are ethical, family may have a problem. So you are asked to examine. So what is one expected to write once again? Family down. Career trouble. So that is one statement. And the second statement, when the number of people adopting unfair means is large, a small minority having a penchant towards ethical means makes no difference. Few people honest. Doesn't make any difference. And sticking to ethical means is detrimental to larger developmental goals. Unethical contributes to development. And then fourth, while one may not involve oneself in large unethical practices, but giving and accepting small gifts makes the system more efficient. Again, it is the same problem. Students who study a lot of general studies and study a lot of an optional and finished graduation, obviously they know what to say about these things. That the small gifts will contribute to corruption, that you should be ethical for developmental purpose, and that few people may be honest but they are important, and if more people are dishonest, it doesn't mean you should be dishonest. And then there will be problems but you should overcome. Aren't the students smart enough to say what they are supposed to say? So it's a question that can be given probably to an elementary school child, testing his imagination. Even they can cheat. But you ask such questions to an IAS aspirant, what is it that they are expected to say? Again for 20 marks. So you are trivializing the exam. If you think there is a lot of depth in these answers, you please provide your model answer. What is it that you expect? Okay. And then show to which candidates you are giving more marks. So I think the people who write elaborately explaining the same thing, maybe with more examples, more cases, will get more marks. It is just a matter of more efficient cheating. Okay, this is trivializing the examination. And even more surprisingly, this is asked in 2007, and as if this is a serious question, this question is a repetition of what was asked in 2014. 2014. Do you know, in 2014, the same question is asked. 2014. See, same thing. Suppose one of your friends who is also aspiring for civil services comes to you for discussing some of the issues related to ethical conduct in public services. He raises the following points. 1. In present times, when unethical environment is quite prevalent, individual attempts to stick to ethical principles may cause a lot of problems in one's own career. It may cause hardship to family members. So what should one do? A. Repeat it. Then when so many people are adopting wrong means, what difference would it make if a small minority? Same thing. And if we become fussy about ethical considerations, will it not hamper economic progress? Same question. And is it understandable? I mean, how about giving and accepting small gratifications and doing small favors? Same question. Even the order is not changed. So, what do they want to test? In fact, now because of this, because we have 5 papers, the pattern is clear. It's very clear pattern is emerging. Maybe in the first 2 years, students didn't know what to expect, and maybe something original might have come. But now there is a pattern. It is repetition. And the pattern is something like somebody is sexually harassing but also efficient. What will you do? Or your superior asks you to do something which is against the interests of the society or organization. What will you do? So look, you are dealing with the students who go through previous papers, and based on the previous papers, they arrive at a pattern, they study a lot, they are masters in competing exams, and then you ask these silly questions and repeat them. So repetition makes cheating even more easy. Okay, so this doesn't serve any purpose. Another problem is, because they don't know what to ask under ethics, they are asking GS questions under ethics. I would say GS twisted. Take question number 13. A building permitted for 3 floors while being extended illegally to 6 floors by a builder collapses. As a consequence, a number of innocent laborers, including women and children, died. These laborers are migrants at different places. The government immediately announced cash relief to the aggrieved families and arrested the builder. Give reasons for such incidents taking place across the country. Suggest measures to prevent their occurrence. How is this an ethics question? This is about what are the laws that prevent illegal construction, and what should one do in case of such casualties. What is an ethics question in this? So like that earlier also. So questions on land rehabilitation, land repalliation. So they gave a big question on displacement and land alienation, and then ask question on what do you do. So I would call it twisted GS. There is no judgment, there is no moral dilemma. You are supposed to know the law, you are supposed to know the procedure, and then state it. What is the need for separate papers? And then, in the last resort of ethics paper setter, public administration. So when they are not sure of what they want to ask, they go to public administration. And some questions, like question number 2. Examine the relevance of the following in the context of civil services. Courage of conviction, spirit of service. Again, what do you do with these questions? Courage of conviction, spirit of service. Does more writing of courage of conviction show that one will have more courage? Same thing about spirit of service. It is some theory produced in a textbook. This doesn't apply for application of one's own mind. It doesn't test what one will be in a real life situation. So The ethics paper, which is supposed to test what the GS and what the optional papers were not testing, is failing in its basic mission because they do not know how to extend and what to ask. They are going to familiar areas and then putting them under ethics framework. Again, it doesn't serve any purpose. See, my opinion is that if they are setting papers like this, it is because I believe they have no clue to what ethics is. How do I know? The standard of the questions that we discussed, and take one more question for example. See, this shows the mindset of the paper setter. Question 4. One of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. Explain with reference to a real life example. One of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. 10 marks. I strongly suspect what the examiner thinks is that if one takes a bribe, then he is no more a man of integrity. I am sure many students also write like that. That is to equate integrity with following rules. They equate honesty and integrity with following rules. Whereas integrity is not that. Integrity is about integration of fragments of person. Parts of him are not in conflict. They are integrated. There is unity in him. There is wholeness in him. Out of that wholeness, he may take bribe. He may kill. So what may be part of that wholeness may be unlawful. Socrates was a man of integrity, but he was poisoned as per law. Jesus was a man of integrity, but crucified. Gandhi was jailed. So integrity doesn't have a reference to laws. Ethics is different from morality, and ethics is different from legality. This entire question paper setter thinks that to be ethical is follow certain rules and regulations, and if one is not following, then one is unethical or one is compromising. It means one doesn't know even the basics. One doesn't know that ethics is a branch of philosophy called moral philosophy. Morality is about do's and don'ts. Ethics is about the investigation into do's and don'ts. So why is bribing considered not good is a question in ethics. Why is murder considered not a virtue or a sin in a religious term is a question in ethics. Whereas the examiners seem to think that these are the code, and if you are following it, you are ethical. And then in this, under examination circumstances, artificially, student has to make a promise. This is the code that I understand and I promise to follow. And when a student gives such a thing, maybe he gets marks. So what I would like to say is that ethics is a branch of philosophy called moral philosophy. So many philosophers have investigated into what makes certain things good, what makes certain things bad, why some people are good, some people are bad, what produces that goodness and what produces the badness, what kind of a psychological makeup. So it is an academic discipline. The paper setter seem to have some kind of a mindset of a retired officer who generally thinks the society is becoming bad, concerned, and then thinks about falling moral values and how he should improve them through exams. It is meaningless. So it is a discipline. It is like a person without any understanding of anthropology sitting an anthropology paper. A person without any understanding, grounding in ethics, sitting an ethics paper. So that is how this paper is coming out to be said by people who don't seem to have a basic understanding of what constitutes ethics. Okay, does this mean something like honesty cannot be tested? And also, what is it that how was it that the original scheme wanted to test honesty? Okay, here I am making certain proposals that honesty can be tested, but with some degree of uncertainty. How? Take the old scheme. Old scheme originally, going back to history, was based on Macaulay model. Macaulay, proposing examination in 1850s, did think of issues like honesty. He knew honesty was a very important thing for a civil servant. But then, how did he want to test? His assumption was that knowledge, depth in a discipline. His assumption was that if one has depth in a particular discipline, in a subject, he is likely to have self-discipline, sensory control. This is supposed to be a source of honesty. They didn't think that knowledge in itself was honesty, but they thought they were measuring honesty through indirect means. So if somebody who has the discipline to level so much of mathematics, to have command over mathematics, it requires a lot of hard work, lot of abstract thinking, and that abstract thinking comes from self-discipline. That is supposed to be an indicator, at least indirectly, of honesty. Okay, so they discussed depth in a discipline, and then if the discipline may not have any relevance to the administration, so they wanted some general knowledge, something like that. That is how we arrived at GS and optionals, and as a final check, interview. So the idea that they didn't plan to test honesty was wrong. UPSC didn't have to realize it in 2013, but that was being tested indirectly. Okay, why? Because direct testing is amenable to cheating. So that was the method. What reforms can we bring in this? In my opinion, if we have the impression that the students are simply reproducing what they are studying, ask questions that are difficult to generate through reproduction, where real thinking is needed, and that real thinking calls for or assumes some level of honesty and integrity. So it means very, very indirect way of measuring honesty. In fact, some questions were like that in 2017 paper also. Take for example, the crisis of ethical values in modern times is traced to a narrow perception of good life. Discuss. It's a very good question. Crisis of narrow perception of good life. It is not easy for a student to decipher what is this narrow perception of good life. It calls for thinking, and that thinking calls for reading some kind of books, may suggest some interests. Same thing, increased national wealth didn't result in equitable distribution of its benefits. It has created only some enclaves of modernity and prosperity for a small minority at the cost of the majority. It is about inequalities. So the student who has studied about inequalities are more likely to know more. Focus on inequality probably suggests that he is concerned about more vulnerable sections. And then discipline generally implies following the order and subordination. However, it may be counterproductive for the organization. So how discipline might be counterproductive? It's again very unusual and difficult question. So if you ask questions sufficiently indirectly, without involving the person, don't say you are going to the interview and somebody died in an accident, what will you do? Please. Sufficiently away from the question, where he doesn't know what the right answer is, where he had to apply his knowledge of what is usually not covered in the mainstream media, then such a person, again with some only level of uncertainty, can say more likely to be honest. So don't trivialize the examination through all kinds of silly questions. So ask questions like this. But to ask questions like this, do we need an ethics paper? I don't think so. So here I have some suggestion to make regarding the overall scheme. We have now 1, 2, 3 plus ethics, essay. Whatever the indirect and good questions from ethics can be put under essay. Again, essay is one issue. Through essay they wanted to study something higher, but because they had a problem, they were asking questions, many questions from GS related. Remove this GS related, make it more indirect, more subtle, essay type, more relevant as ethics questions here, and general essay, and then make it let there be GS4, but GS1, 2, 3, 4, there are so many areas, those areas can be distributed along these 4 papers and can be tested. Now too many areas are in GS1, 2, 3 and we don't know in which area more questions are coming or not coming. So it is becoming more unpredictable. So you can allot areas, make it more predictable and make it tougher, remove this paper, ethics, and enrich this essay paper. That is my suggestion. Okay. So coming to last, our course. Our course will have both ethics and essay. And through our course, I would like to teach what actually ethics in a very serious academic discipline, and also help you to score answers, to score marks in questions that UPSC is asking. So I welcome the students to join the course, and then more importantly, this criticism of the examination paper is an invitation to all the concerned academicians, professors, UPSC members, former members to look at this paper and create a better recruitment system. That's it. Thank you.